Seb has something cool to show us today. So I think we should start with that real quick, and then we jump to the first talk.
Cool. Oh, no.
So, of course, to register, you can do it with Luma, you can do it on the website. But as we said, right, we like to do hacking stuff, we do hackathon and events. So we were, okay, what can we do, to change your life, make your life way simpler, right? What if you could register to an All Things Web event from your terminal, right? That would be awesome, right? Well, we did this, right? If you go on the website, you can find the installation. You can find how to install the CLI, and obviously you have a very beautiful CLI. By the way, we also do live streams, so if you want to see how this has been built, it's online. And yeah, so here we have only one event, so it's fully written in React in the terminal. It's kind of cool. Question: is there an MCP?
You should come to the April 3rd event. There may be some user feedback that we act on.
Definitely. See, you have also it's fully React. See, the stuff is changing at the bottom, still in the terminal, and we want to put some AI stuff, right? So it was not enough. We had to put some AI, right?
We can't wait to see you soon. Select one of the events below to register.
Then you can select, right?
You selected AIX All Things Web. It's happening on April 3rd, 2025, 10 a.m. at AWS Gen AI Love. We'll have several fantastic lightning talks, snacks and drinks, and plenty of time to nerd out about AI, web, and the future of AI. Please enter your email now. Yeah, you are all set.
Okay,
see you there.
Okay, cool. So going from one dev tool to maybe a more useful dev tool, our first talk is going to be from, sorry, I forgot your name. James from Codebuff. And James, you want to take it away?
How are you guys? Is this working? All right. Nice to meet you all. See if it's connecting. All right. So I'm James. I'm working on Codebuff, which is basically a competitor to all these other coding agents. In particular, it's not like the text editor. So we're not forking VS Code. We're just doing the agent part. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about agents first, and then I'll get into a demo after. But yeah, I think that it's like working on this is like it's super interesting and fascinating. It's like the thing of the time. Everyone's talking about coding agents, and they're comparing all the different different models and like the different companies, whether it's like Cursor or Windsurf. There's Incline. There's like a new one coming out every day, and people are saying, "Wow, I'm able to automate like all my code." It's like there's a stat from the winter YC batch where basically a quarter of the companies, literally 95% of their code base is just generated. So they literally are doing vibe coding, build a customer. So it's like that's already up to a quarter. So it's like I think that we're kind of reaching this phase change where it's going from basically it was like 0 like a few months ago, and it's going to sort of like cross. Well, we'll see how far it gets. So I think that it can also be overhyped. So there's all people that are going, it's not useful at all. Like actually, like get in a real a large code base, like and try to put an agent, and they're like, I don't like the results. I'm back to manual coding. So okay, so the first part, I'm going to talk a little bit about how do you build a coding agent, because that's what I've been working on. And maybe that could be interesting, or you could like work on your own. Like I was just talking to the organizer, and he's saying that he was going to fork Rue Klein, which is a fork of Klein, and this is like an open source version of a coding agent. But just to back, what is a coding agent? How does it work? It's basically it's using LLMs, right? And it's not. It sort of has an indeterminate stopping point. So it's like, okay, you can run one prompt through the LLM, but that's not an agent. That just outputs something, and then there's no loop there. It's not all right. So the basic building blocks of an agent are like, first you want to like load it with context about the problem that you're trying to solve. In a code base, that would be like files that might be relevant. In Cursor, you like manually can pick the files that you think are going to be helpful. And then some other tools do fancier things where they will automatically try to find the files for you. You can also include all kinds of stuff in context. In Codebuff, we like try to like find any bit of context that's useful. It's like your git changes, like that's because it's like what you're currently working on. We actually go in and we like read every file and we say, when was it last read? Because that's actually stored on your operating system. And then we just pull the last like 20 files. So like that's probably useful, like something you looked at recently. There's kind of just like infinite things that you could like put in there, like which operating system, like you could, yeah. But anyway, I think context is the most important part of the code, because that's if you don't like if the agent doesn't know what's going on, it's just going to give you like bad results. The second part is you give it tools. Like it has to be able to do something. If it's just chatting with you, is that a coding agent? I don't really think so. And then so there's like all kinds of tools that you can give a coding agent, and I think the basics are like you want it to be able to further explore, read files. You want it to be able to write files. And then you also want it to be able to like say, I'm done now, like, and or like basically have some way to keep it looping. And so like for Codebuff, we have all three of those. We also have a bunch more tools. One like really interesting piece is the like editing files, and I think this is like another key aspect of the coding agent that's pretty tricky to get right. I think that it sounds pretty simple. Like Sonnet, you ask a model like Sonnet, for example, and you're like, please change my file to do whatever, and then like the simplest thing is Sonnet would just output an entire new copy of the file. It would just rewrite the entire file, and that can work, right? But it obviously is a little bit slow, and it's also going to like consume a lot of tokens and be expensive. So like I think that's where people start, is like we'll just have Sonnet rewrite the entire file, and uh, you can kind of see how I think really Cursor was kind of the first to start building like something that actually was practical, and the way they evolved from that point was, okay, just like they basically prompt Sonnet, and they're like, "Can you show me like naturally like what code is being changed," and then like the like LMs just like cohere, or like they basically all converge on this format where they'll just put like a little comment that says, okay, there's some existing code, and then it'll start writing a block. It'll be like a function that you're like updating, and it'll rewrite the whole function that you're updating. And it'll be like, okay, rest the file, like it'll put like a comment, like, and so this sort of format is like a very abridged version of the file, and then they trained a custom model to rewrite your whole file faster. It's using a technique called speculative decoding, where essentially it runs the model in parallel, like, and it's sort of like you have sometimes you have a smaller model that goes faster, and it can like check the larger model against the prediction of the smaller model and discard the results if the larger model doesn't agree. But anyway, that's how Cursor like manages this. I think they're up to like 5,000 tokens per second building a speculative decoding model. There's another approach which like mine and others use, which is just a simple search replace operation. So it's like so the problem here is we're editing a file, and like we're trying to get the LM to like edit the file, and so basically it could say, here's a search string, here's a request string, and that's instant. And the reason why that's good is because it's fast. The reason why it's bad is sometimes it gets it wrong, and it's like not as reliable as rewriting the file. Anyway, okay, so you have your coding agent. It has context. It has tools, and yeah, I think so. One of the things that Codebuff does special is that we actually try to. It's like the simplest thing is you just have like Sonnet, maybe 3.7 is the latest one that came out, and you just set it loose, and it just like loops files, and it like lists files in your project, and then it just like goes ahead and makes changes. Something that might be a little bit better, which is what we do, is we have like a whole separate process to find files that could be relevant, and then we just inject those at the very beginning. And so we sort of like get like a big like start on any problem where we can get like maybe 12 files if it's a big code base, maybe even more, and then it can sort of get going. Okay. Maybe I'll say one more thing about the like the future of coding agents. I think it seems that beyond just prompting, the like reinforcement learning is this like really powerful concept where basically have an agent and you like give it all these tools, you can sort of just run it in many iterations, and then one of them maybe will solve your problem. Like maybe it's a sweep bench, like solve this like there's like a PR or there's like a GitHub issue and it said you need to find this bug or whatever, and because you can there's a ground truth of like did you solve the bug, do the test pass, and you can do reinforcement learning, and then so it can actually learn to natively use the tools, and this is what's like all the labs are currently doing. OpenAI is going to release the product. I imagine like this year that does it. It's not at 3.7. I think it actually has some like bad characteristics because it's like almost I feel like it's been overtrained to like literally do this task. It will keep going until it like solves the problem. And so I think that actually there's some drawbacks where that can be worse. Okay. Um, and yeah, let's just start the demo. Okay, so here I am. I'm in Cursor. Why am I in Cursor if I'm going to show you Codebuff, a different agent? It's because it actually runs in your terminal. So if I just type in Codebuff, you can install it with npm. Okay, so I'm actually in. This is a Convex demo. So I actually there's like a starter template, and over here you can see I have all these files. And then one of the interesting things about Codebuff is that it reads, it's kind of like Cursor rules, but there's like these knowledge files. So it's knowledge.md. And I also have convex.knowledge.md. And then I actually just downloaded this because they provided it already, and it has all these guidelines. And, you know, this is the context that LLMs love. It helps them understand the library, it makes them fluent in technology. Okay, so since we have all that, I think I'm just going to paste in a prompt. Okay. Well, actually, let me show you first what it is. Okay, this is their like starter template, so I can just chat. And I think it's actually syncing. Let's see if it appears. All right, it says hi. I don't know if you guys can see that. Cool. So it basically is working so far. And then let's just add in some prompts. So I'm just doing Codebuff. I put in a prompt. The first thing it does is read a bunch of files. As I said, it injects whatever files are relevant. It's asking for clarifying questions. So use your absolutely. Okay. Can you see that? Okay. All right. So I gave it a vague request, and then it asked me some questions, and I just said use your judgment because this is a demo. And so there's a few things going on here. It added a subgoal. It started to write some files. Let's see. Another thing it did is it ran a type check to make sure that it's passing. Look at this. Okay, so I basically told it to move the chat to a sidebar, and then what is this? All right, I've got a grid. Nice. And then so I think it just did the like kind of front end part. Let's say, can you sync the of my character? Whatever. Typos don't matter. And then so basically that you can see the interface here is just the only thing you can do in Codebuff is you just send natural language. You can also write terminal commands, and then it just goes and does stuff. And it's pretty efficient for a number of reasons, but like here it's doing all of this in one LLM request. And then it's going ahead and like, you know, it's running the checks, and then it's gonna go ahead and like try to fix it, which it's doing right now. And okay, this is what it did. Okay, well actually we wouldn't really see that difference visually, but actually we would to okay. Let's just see if this is going. So we have this going, and then if I check over here, oh look, there's a new table called players. and then x, y coordinates. And if I move over here, that should increase x probably. Yeah, now it's x8, y2. So it's working. I think this is just like Convex is the most magical tool for AI like vibe coding. Everything just works. Everything live updates. You don't have to create the tools manually. So I'm a big fan of Convex. And this is just like a brief overview of Codebuff. You should try it out. If you want to install it, you can just or just maybe open another terminal. You just can write npm install SG Codebuff, and then if you want to get Convex with us, you can do Codebuff -- create Convex, and then it'll create a template with everything set up, all the batteries included. That's it. That's it. Oh, questions? Yeah. Yeah, you. Yeah. Oh, sure. Do you want me to repeat or?
Yeah, sure. So
go
can
ahead.
you tell me
Yeah.
a little bit about your pricing and also if there are any plans to implement functionality with uploading a design and having some kind of output based on
Yeah, those are great questions. Yeah, I think pricing is so interesting. I think like no one in this space can figure out, is this supposed to be a subscription? Like, is it to be unlimited? Oh no, but then we're gonna lose so much money. And then like Cursor is just like capping it randomly. It's like there's fast requests, there's like this kind of request. You only get so many of each. How many do you have? I don't know. So I think that we're learning as well. We started with a subscription. It's actually more expensive. So our idea is to like just get better results than Cursor because we're trying to find a niche in the market. And so on large code bases, we like get way more context than Cursor. And so we actually charge $49 a month. That gives you a budget of credits. Then if you go over, you just pay incrementally, like usage based after that. I think after feedback, we're gonna switch. We're just gonna go to like pure usage based because like it seems like users prefer that the most. I think that that's where we're headed because ultimately the LMs can cost a lot and like you don't want to be like, stuck on a particular plan. It just like doesn't make that much sense. Okay, and then your second question is if you have some like mockups maybe in Figma or like you have some images, can you like get that implemented? We started working on some of this. I think it's not that hard. I think well, one, there's like all these like MCP servers and other like people that are like working on open source solutions, so we could integrate those. I'm a little skeptical of MCP in the main coding agent because I think you want to like carefully sculpt your tools to your coding agent. You want to define it exactly. So we'll probably make a first party integration that would be better, hopefully, at like creating those mockups from like a we don't have that yet. Yeah. Okay. Maybe one more question. Yeah. Okay. Back.
Just out of curiosity, are you using a framework underneath? And for you mentioned reinforcement learning. Are you using like a data store to store like past messages to feedback with context?
Yeah, great questions. Yes. Wait, sorry. What was the first part?
Are you using a framework?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we actually completely rolled our own. I don't know if it's the best idea, but I think for prompting, you kind of want to know exactly what's going into your prompt. I think I agree it's the tool of using any framework where you can like very easily like control that. And we have like a server architecture and a client, and the server like there's like a lot of complexity with like promises and stuff. And in order to get it perfect, I feel like you almost want to deal with the raw material. So I'd be skeptical of frameworks. And then yeah, in terms of like RL, we're actually not doing anything. We're just doing prompting. But we're using multiple models. I guess that's the fancy thing we're doing. And I think that this is a great approach because, for example, when we're finding context in the code base, Sonnet is very slow. It's like very expensive. So we're using Gemini Flash. for some of those tasks, and it works really, really well. It's very low latency, it's cheap. So I recommend that. And then I would say that we actually are planning to build a custom model. We're probably going to start with fine tuning, because you collect a bunch of data, and then you just like train the model on that. So it says, given this prompt, give this output, and you give it all these cool examples of like, this is exactly what I want you to do, and then you fine tune on that. And then RL is like a step farther in terms of like how easy it is to do. I have like a friend who's like trying to sell me their RL services. Like they're like, wow, you should definitely think of something. You're building a coding agent, you need to use RL. Like, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna think of something good like to use that for, but I haven't thought of that yet. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I actually have one question for you. How much of the Codebuff code base is vibes? Is it 95%? Okay. Was it Codebuff vibes or? Okay. So we have two more talks. Next up, we have Nipunn from Convex talking about technical leadership in the world of AI coding.
Hello. Yeah, okay. So I made a last second adjustment to this thing, as you can tell.
What's that one in the middle?
Yeah. Cool. So let's start. Okay. Hi. If I need to talk louder, just go like this anywhere. Cool. Yeah, so this is a talk on what I call technical leadership in the world of AI coding agents. I started using like kind of all the coding agents a couple months ago, maybe a little bit more. And I felt like it drew like a lot of parallels for me between my being like a tech lead or like a mentor or something like that. And it just, I like feel like I want to share this connection. Like it feels like very strong to me. So we'll start. So this is like, thesis statement on the first slide. This is my thesis statement. It's going to come up a lot, but I think that like to use an AI coding tool well, or really at all, requires what I would describe as technical leadership skills. So kind of like, what do I know about this? I've been an engineer for like 12 years. I've worked at a couple of companies. I've alternated between being an IC and a tech lead like a bunch of times. I kind of believe a lot in mentorship and what I call leading from behind, but that's sort of like leading in a way where you're like not telling people what to do, but encouraging and then right things happen. And I spent a lot of time working what I would describe as like underneath, in quotes, people with less experience than me. And kind of the number of times that someone who is less experienced than me eventually surpasses me in their career is like very high. And this, I guess in some sense could be bad for my ego, but actually I kind of feel pretty good about it because I feel like I contributed to like all these people's growth. I managed the intern program at Dropbox in 2015. There were 60 interns. They're all like doing amazing things in the industry now. So like sometimes I hear about like intern programs in 2020 during the pandemic, and people describe their like mentor not being there, or like people kind of being spaced out, or doing these all remote programs. And I just look at it and I'm like, this is not flown. I would let this happen. So I don't know. Like I think I don't know. It's just something I care about a lot, and I think that's why this like reminds me of it a lot. Yeah, like if I were a high school teacher, I would be like the kind of teacher that just expects the most out of the kids. Like everyone should, like, you're capable of more than you think you are. Like, and I just like make you figure it out like real quick. So this topic, developing strong technical leadership. This is a term I directly stole from James, who's someone I've been lucky to know for like a decade, like mentor, friend, also CTO of Convex, founder. And I think like technical leadership is one of those things that you kind of like develop slowly over the course of your career. Like you develop it a little bit over time. You develop it from working with other people, stuff like this. You often start by doing like IT work, and when you like get good enough at it, you might like mentor someone who's newer than you. And there's just these skills of like being accountable for work that's not the work you did yourself that you have to develop to do this well. And what I'm just noticing is that when you start using AI coding tools, I think you just have to learn this stuff really fast because like suddenly the AI is like writing code. Like you hit tab and like 100 lines of code appear, or you like go to Devin or Codebuff or whatever, and like you give it a prompt and then it like spits out a bunch of stuff, and you have to decide whether that stuff is what you wanted. And if you read every line super carefully, like maybe you might have done it yourself. Like if you're just going to do it yourself, then like there's no point. I was talking with someone earlier. It's like if you hire a contractor, but in order to validate your contractor's work is good, you read everything carefully. You've done it yourself. There's a certain skill. You have to like be able to give a I'll call it prompt, give a good prompt, and then evaluate whether the result is good in like significantly less time. And I think that's just gonna start becoming a day one skill. It's not a skill you like get later with like you're just gonna have to know it. And so if I put my like high school teacher hat on, like this is just a thing I'm gonna expect of people right at the beginning. Right? You know, some ways you get an advantage is like, I don't know, giving a 18-year-old like a report. This seems like a lot or something, but I think giving them a code buff seems fine. You can terminate your code buff if it like doesn't work and make a new one. I don't know. So I think this is just like the evolution of what it's going to mean to be good at this. Yeah. So there's like a gazillion of these tools out there. Like the best one is in the middle. But I would actually categorize some of these tools in a kind of like some of them are more oriented around making like you as a developer a little more effective. Like when I use something like Cursor, it feels like that. Some or like Windsurf, when I use something that's more like Bolt is at the other extreme, or like Claude Code or something like that, where it feels more like you're telling like quote unquote something else to do something, and then it comes back to you. I think there's just like different angles this is approached from, but I think all of these are kind of technical leadership skills in different ways. So I've heard this kind of debate recently, and like I kind of think like I think it's gonna be both. Like I think you're gonna need to become more effective yourself, and you're gonna have to essentially have like reports or contractors or interns or whatever you want to call it that are also agents. Like I don't think I don't think like the junior dev is going away. I think the expectation of the junior is that you're going to have to like know how to have these like skills that we would formerly think is advanced. But also I have optimism that you're going to figure it out fast because you got tools to figure it out faster. And I don't know. That's just how things work. Like I think people will get good at it. I stole this slide word for word from James. I think you like it a lot. I'm just going to read it. A tech lead engineer with sound technical experience and strong communication skills who is accountable for setting the technical strategy and direction of a project and championing the overall quality of a project. The TL for a project is typically a technical authority in the domain of the project and is expected to provide engineering staff mentorship for the rest of the team. Like, I believe in this. I think this is true. And I also think this is like kind of every sentence of this is something that's going to be kind of important for you to do with a team of, with your Cursor composer or with your code mod or your like Codebuff terminal or your Claude Code or even if you're chatting with GPT with like asking for help on how to make a CLI command. Like I think all of this is going to be relevant. Like even working on a project by yourself. Okay, so evaluating quality. This is like one of the big things to me. I think leaders, like kind of by definition, are accountable for other people's work, and like whether other people's work is like the code your intern made, the code that like, the person you hired made, or a new employee on your team, or like a thing you fed to Devin, or like a 100 line tab complete, like even that counts. Like all of that is going to be like a bunch of stuff just got output, and you have to be able to evaluate the quality faster than you could do it yourself. And you have to be able to, in order to do this, there's this like delicate balance where you can't overtrust the code, but you can't undertrust it. If you overtrust the thing that appears, then like when it goes wrong, you won't know what's going on, and you're accountable for the work something else did. One analogy, it's like if you're a junior carpenter or something, and you're like, "Well, I used the hammer." And the person's like, "Well, the nails aren't in straight, and the thing is not on right." Like, doesn't matter if you like. You have to understand what's going on. I think you also can't undertrust it, because if you undertrust, then you're double checking everything. So you have to like just trust it the right amount, and this is like actually very hard. Like I like really think it's actually very hard because it will make mistakes. You'll be accountable for the mistake. You have to handle the mistake. But that kind of brings me to the next point, which is like I think you have to get good at experiencing the paper cuts from these mistakes, but not the like I'll call them the laceration. So basically, you want to have the kinds of mistakes that happen when you're working with your tool or people. This applies when you have reports and coworkers and stuff like this too, so that you can kind of grow the system of your team together. You have like little mistakes, then you learn them and figure them out, and you get better from the next time. When you have big mistakes, then your company goes out of business or whatever it is. And so you have to like not under trust, but also not over trust. You get just the right amount so you grow together. There's this quote it reminds me of from the book or from Anti-Fragile. Anti-fragility is beyond resilience or robustness. The resilient resists shocks and stays the same. The anti-fragile gets better. And I think like a good company or system or team or thing like that like will benefit from paper cuts. Like that's the thing. Hard for me to recommend this book. The book is meh, but I think the title is good enough. Cool. Accountability. This is like also a super important one, I think. The technical lead of a project or of a team or something is not the best engineer. Like that's not the job. The job is to be accountable. And like in a very real way, I think if not already true, definitely going to be true, the AI is going to be like way fucking better than you at like a lot of things in a lot of ways. And that does not mean that it is more accountable. You're the one that's accountable for work. And so like it's like kind of your job to like be able to understand what's going on and like make good decisions at this high level and be accountable for the gaps and like send the right work to the right thing at the right time. I've had like interns in the past who could run circles around me, but like I was still accountable, and like my ability to be accountable was higher. Like that was why I had that. Cool. Raise the level of abstraction. Both higher level and like just tighter, better. Like higher level abstractions and better abstractions work better when you're being a leader because you can't be in the weeds because there's a lot of stuff going on. And you ask anyone who has like 10 reports, understand. Like I don't know what everything is going on, but something at a high level. If you ask like someone who is like an area lead that has like 500 people in their area, like they definitely don't know what's going on. That's the point. So like better abstractions means that you can lead more effectively. So systems that have better guarantees means that you can like skim a high level thing and get a sense of what's going on. Whereas if it has worse guarantees, you skim the high level thing, you still trust that you know what's going on. And so that becomes more important. Like in a weird, like you think you can get away from this, but actually this just becomes way, way more important. You have to like understand the abstraction, good architecture, like I say this kind of tongue in cheek, with an AI agent, just like draw a diagram, like boxes and arrows, like very like academic old school, and then you like feed that to the agent, like the tests come out better, like the architecture comes out better, like this kind of thing is like actually useful. So That is something I think is important. It's also a thing I mean, like, I think this is like one of the reasons why stuff like Convex works really well with AI agents. And Convex not the only one. It's like stuff that has good abstractions, agentic tools will do better with because you can evaluate its work better and it doesn't hit weird gotchas and stuff like that. Shout out this leaderboard that we put out recently because I think this is like a thing that I feel like is very true, but it's like nice to be able to measure it. So you can check this out for Convex, but this is like a leaderboard of like different LLMs and their ability to. This is kind of a fun part. There's like sort of cheat codes you can use that don't work when you're working with people that do work when you're working with AI.
It's threatening.
It's nice. I mean, maybe it means you get worse at working with people, but you can use the cheat codes. One of them, you can kind of burn bridges with the AI because you can just terminate the instance and start over. Like if you're just kind of like, if you just totally screw up the conversation, you describe something wrong. You probably had this experience. You like describe something wrong and you're like, no, I didn't mean that. Can you do it this other way? It like over rotates on the old strategy and like doesn't quite figure it out. And you're like, close the terminal, make a new one, start over, and then you can get a better answer. There's actually a parallel in working with a human on this one, but it's a lot rougher to terminate a human and get a different one. Yeah, would not recommend. Yeah, the Men in Black device. Yeah, so would not recommend. Like, I think like there's like more onus to get that better like up front when you're working with like I don't know some poor recent college graduate that you're working with, and you have to like make sure you teach something well. But like I think this is one nice thing, and I think this is one of those things that's going to make it easier to learn this skill. Like one of the hard parts of learning the skill that takes like many years is this. It will still take a while to learn, but maybe it'll take 2 years instead of 10. I don't know. I'm hoping. Another cheat code: you can have 3 interns today and 1 contractor tomorrow, and none the day after, and then 5 the next day. So you can kind of you don't have to like plan 9 months ahead of time. If you've ever hired interns before, it's like a little. You have to like start hiring in October or November for the next year, and it's like a whole process. There's some advantage there too. You can also expect more out of your human interns now, which I think is good. You can also tell your intern to go to sleep. You can tell your AI intern to go to sleep for 7 hours. That's a nice cheat. So, like, yeah, putting my high school teacher hat back on, like, I think this will let you, like, will let people, like humans learn the technical skills way faster because you can use these kinds of, like, you can use this to, like, practice, basically. You can use this to practice without ruining some of the engineers' like first internship. Whatever, yeah. Cool. Sad realities. When you teach a human, they kind of learn, and you get like the inspiration from them figuring it out. I think that's kind of cool. I think with AI tools, most of the learning that you get some of the learning in your code base a little bit, but I think a lot of it's just from model improvements. So maybe it'll get better in the future, but I think that's kind of true right now. There's a little you can do, but I don't know. Just take that energy and redirect it to teaching humans around you to use it better. That's always a good thing. It's good for people. And yeah, go be a leader. Like, don't hide behind the AI. It's like you're not the other way around. So you get to like learn all of these hard skills and have accountability. And I don't know, maybe I'm being too philosophical, but I just think that this kind of skill translates to your life. Like, it'll matter when you're like organizing stuff with your family or your community organization or planning a vacation with your friends or all things. Like, I think these are important skills. And thank you.
Questions?
In your opinion, how will interviewing process change with the assistance of AI? For example, I've been doing content development for the last 2 years, like React Next.js, and I started doing some SaaS tool like last month. I was able to build Python web scraper, scraping like 5 websites, e-commerce,
Yeah.
without ever writing Python. And it's efficiently, I can like explain how it works and stuff. But if you ask me, can you build it without AI? It's like, hell no. But I can explain how it works, like every line, functions and stuff like this. So like, how are you gonna start measuring people's knowledge in that stuff?
This is an amazing question. I don't know the answer, but I will say that I think interview processes always have a gap between what the real job is and what the interview is. Like, this has always been true. It's like the interview is like, here's a toy problem. If you can solve this, you can build up a bigger one. But like in real life, you can Google stuff and all that. There's always like a bit of a gap there. I'm not sure how it will actually shake out. Like there's different, some do like more toy problems, some do more real problems, some say code on a whiteboard, some say code at a computer, some ignore coding a little bit and like look at your past work. There's a lot of different ways to do interviews. I think it's just going to get more messy because the gap between like what the real job is and like what you can test quickly is going to look different. So I imagine there's going to be some interviews where you get to use whatever tools you want, just build something. There might be take homes. There might be more devotion to the whiteboard style, or maybe it'll be a little bit like your AI gave you this code. Good. I don't know. I'm not sure. These are all just ideas. I don't know the real answer, but it's a good question. It's actually very important.
This was an amazing talk. I'm very hungry for more information on this. Seriously, and actually that's kind of my question. Quality and accountability. Like quality, the idea of good code kind of coming as a result of engineering kind of best practices that are developed by the team, shared. Like, how do you automate that in an agent? Are you like using linting and various other sorts of cops on the code? And then accountability, like what does that actually look like? Trial and error. I guess these are big questions. And would you actually consider maybe expounding upon these concepts at some point in the future? Sort of broad, I don't know.
Yeah. So okay, there's two parts. There's one is like, how do you like put the right guardrails in place to like make sure that like to evaluate whether something is doing well. And I think it's kind of all the same techniques when you're working with people. Like I think linting is good. Like this is why people put linting in. Not all linting is good. Some linting is bad and annoying, but like some linting is good. I think the right amount of linting is the kind that helps your team of people do something consistent together. I think good tests are good, bad tests are bad in this way. Like good tests let the reviewer look at the test and be like, well, this thing passes and I feel confident it works. And bad tests just create a lot of work for the person working on the PR and doesn't help like the reviewer gain confidence or whatnot. And I think like these sorts of arts of like, I don't know, I worked on a system where randomized testing was really helpful. And then as a reviewer, I would understand really well if the code that was being worked on was covered by randomized tests. I would know that if the test passed, I would have a confidence. Or if they changed something, I'd be like, change this in the randomized generator, like I don't feel confident. I think like those kinds of things become useful, especially if you're working with an AI agent. It's like run the test and make sure it passes, and you feel confident. I think the other aspect asked about was accountability, and I think accountability is about like being responsible for the outcome, and that means like sometimes you just got to put your like rep on the line or something. It's like this code is going out, and like I didn't read every line of it, but I feel pretty confident about it. And then you put your rep on the line for it. And when it doesn't work, you can't be like it's the agent's fault. You can't be like it's my intern's fault. And like I don't know, James can't be like it's just that accountability is about responsible for that. You weren't like exactly in the weeds on all of it.
Any other questions? I can throw this thing, right? Yeah. I'm gonna launch it. I'm gonna launch it. No, I'll go halfway.
Oh, cut off. This image took longer to generate, about as long to generate the entire time.
Hi. Thanks for the talk. I haven't used a lot of tools. I think the two tools that I've used the most are like Copilot and Warp.
Mhm.
And I was sort of curious because what I thought, one topic that I haven't seen a lot is like the agents themselves are very passive in terms of they get a prompt and then they respond. What do you think about like leadership from the place of dialogue?
Mhm.
Almost like questioning, like a questioning back to, hey, this is what I think, because I feel like that does happen
Mhm.
in the real world. And like, what are your thoughts around? Because that helps the reinforcement of the person who's prompting as well.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah, like
what do you think about that?
I've experienced this before, like working with people. Like there's one type of person who like maybe like doesn't believe in asking for help quite enough, and like they might just like go into a rabbit hole for like 6 days before asking for help, and they're that type of person encouraged to like if something is taking longer than amount of time, ask because maybe there's just some reason that would be hard for you to figure out that I could help with. Some people ask for help a little too often, and they just like hit one tiny wall, and they're like, "Please, the compiler said this. What do I do?" And I think that person should be encouraged, like, just try for 5 minutes, like Google something, figure it out. And I think like that, knowing which one it is. I mean, like I gave extreme examples, but like knowing which one it is in practice, is like skill, art, whatever. I don't know what it's going to look like for AI tools because they're really good at researching stuff, but also they're really good at. I've seen code get lost for like 12, like 25 minutes on like a trivial task before, you know, like, so I think it's going to be a little bit of an art. And I kind of like it when agents come up with a plan, tell you the plan, and then just start doing the plan. And then you can kind of decide whether you want to interrupt the plan or you want to be out and written out. Which is also kind of nice because they're they're on the order of like 1,000 times faster than a human, so you're not like waiting 6 days to like let them go in circles. It's 30 minutes or something. But I kind of like that. Again, I don't know exactly how it's going to shake out because it depends what the tool is good at, how good at, and it's all very new and every month it's different. Got to figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I got it. All right. So don't worry. I got it. Hello. It's me again. Okay, so we're a little over time, and I'm gonna go quickly, but I think it's gonna be like 5-10 minutes. Can we do 5-10 more minutes? Are we good? Okay. Cool. Who remembers this website? You guys are on Twitter. This was 5 months ago. It feels way long ago to be though. Again, with AI, so much has happened, right? Just the last few months and weeks. I feel like, yeah, I feel like this was like a year ago. Anyways, if you have not seen this website, it's called McMaster Car. If you just Google McMaster, you'll find it. And it's insanely fast. And what they do with the image optimization is really cool. So like just like the network tabs, like click around a little bit. I'm not going to say more, but it's going to be worth it. So it's very intriguing. Around the same time, we were building the All Things Web website. And we do have a lot of images on there. I was looking for like a solution image optimization. And I didn't really know what to use just because I didn't have a lot of experience. And so I was looking at some services, but I didn't know if like the UI or like APIs I was using. I didn't really know if I want to combine storage and optimization in one service or have like an S3 bucket and then optimize the command. I just never did it, no experience. So I thought, hey, just build it myself, get a little bit of a feeling, and then I will make a service. But those were famous last words because the last 5 months, apparently, I was just doing image optimization. And I built an open source package for it, as one does. And it's really cool. It's like remix apps where you need something on the front end, but you also have like an optimization endpoint. And just for these kind of apps, there wasn't really a solution out there, so I built it. And it's now part of the Epic stack, like Kenzie template. That was really cool. And overall, this was like just a really cool learning experience for me. And I got a lot of taste opinions about image optimization. And it has nothing to do with AI, and I'm sorry about that, but I want to share a few points, just general about image optimization. And then if you still feel like it, I'm going to jump into the code or like talk more about how you do image optimization in Node if you guys are still down. Cool. So the first thing is, if you actually have users, not like all things web, don't actually do image optimization on your server, because it is like a very different optimization. Like you have to do something very differently than what you usually do on your web server, right? Like usually you do like fetch from a database, massage some JSON and return it, right? You don't really need CPU for that and memory. But for transforming images, you do actually need a lot of CPU power, especially if you want to do it in parallel. So you probably want to have a dedicated server for that if you run your own image optimization, just so you can tweak it differently, right? Like you have different targets there. But maybe a little bit more applicable, even if you store your images on S3 and you use a service to optimize, you probably have some kind of reference to that image in the database, right? Like you have a profile image, you have a users table, and there's a reference to the profile image URL on your users table, right? That's kind of what I did in the past a lot. But it turns out if you actually want to do good images on the web, you need a lot more fields than just source, right? Alt text is obvious, right? You don't want to write down profile image or something, right? Like you actually want to know what this image is about. Width and height are also super important. The browser actually uses those fields to calculate the aspect ratio ahead of time. You can apply the CSS and stuff, but like that's already too late. Like the browser reads through the HTML and wants to dedicate some space. So it's way better if you provide it ahead of time. And also if you have like you don't want like a blurry version of the image first, and then while the image loads in, right, like you already have something to display, like a background image, or there's different ways to do it. But that's all metadata that is part of the image, right? So what I would recommend, or what I've started doing now, is like have an image table in your database, and every time someone uploads an image, that's a one-time operation, get all the source information of that image, right? Maybe even the format for the content type if you ever have to like download that image. It's just very convenient to have it all in one place. And then it's just for a reference to wherever you need an image, right? Like it doesn't need to be profile images, but wherever you need an image on your site, just reference to that table, and you will have everything about that image you would ever. Cool. Next thing, this is my cat, by the way, Lucy. We will see way more about Lucy in a second. So if you store an image, right, let's say you have like profile images you upload, or wallpapers, or imagine you build something like Notion, you drag and drop just like random images into your like box or whatever. Always make sure that when you upload that image and store it, that you store it 3 or 4 times bigger than you actually need it, because you never know the sharpness of future displays, right? Like with Retina displays, it's called DPR, density pixel ratio, I think. It's already 2 to 3 times higher than what you actually set as the size of the image. So if you have a modern phone, even though in CSS you say maybe like this image could be 400 by 400, what the browser could actually display there would already be 800 by 800. So you should always have like very like bigger images available if possible. And then obviously you should use a good component library or something that actually takes use of that, right? And an image optimization service that understands to resize the images properly. But yeah, just something to keep in mind. Don't be cheap on storing images. Maybe just store them in 4K, whatnot. You never know when you will use them. But kind of related, you definitely want to resize the images to the correct aspect ratio. As always, right, it depends. Let's think back to Notion, right? You just drag images into your like block or whatever. The size doesn't matter. Then this is not applicable here. But there are some images like a profile image or like a wallpaper where they are part of your layout of your site, right? So when you actually render them, you will give them a height and a width. And that is a specific aspect ratio. And for those images, you definitely want to make sure that when you store them, that you store them in the correct aspect ratio, so that you don't have to change the aspect ratio when you resize it. And then it can like stretch it or like focus on the wrong thing, right? Or like, you know how weird that sometimes looks. And I guess like the best pattern here is just to provide like a cropping tool to users and be like, hey, this is not the correct aspect ratio you provided. This is what you need. Now crop it and then they can decide themselves how it should look like. Cool. Okay. So far, so good. Any questions? No? Okay. I vibe coded this little demo here, this cursor. I didn't know about Codebuff before today, so I'm sorry. It's all visible? Or is it is like the bottom visible as well in the back, or do you have to scroll in a little bit? So this is like just a demo of how image optimization works, and we can play around with it a little bit. And then if you still feel like it, we can go into the code and actually do a little bit of changes. It's also deployed to Vercel, so you could actually try it out yourselves, or we can fall back to that if local doesn't work. But yeah, so we have a server running somewhere. This one is local. The source image is /cat.png, which is just in the public folder, right? So we make a request to this image endpoint here. It's all in the bottom, but it says /image there. This is like the preview. See the preview, URL preview? This is the request we send to the server. So it's /image, and then search parameters. The first one is just the source of the image, is cat.png. So we have an endpoint that is our optimized endpoint. We say, hey, the source image is /cat.png. Please return. That's all we do right now, right? And then if we do this, you can see here on the right, the image is actually fetched. But the dimensions are like massive, right? Like this is an iPhone picture. It's way too big. It's 80 meg because I transformed it to a PNG to make it even heavier just for the effect. And it also took the server, about the file size in server memory to process that image, because this is an endpoint that just loads the image into the memory, into a buffer, passes this to Sharp, which is like the most used image optimization or like transformation library for Node, and then returns it. But the cool thing is we can optimize it, right? So like this is a PNG, and now we say I have like this little button that says good here. All it does is like fill in this form. But now we say like, hey, actually all we need is an image of the size of 400 by 400. And this is a modern browser, so let's do it as an AVIF. So let's load this image again. And you can see the image information has updated now, right? Like we've refetched the image, this time as an AVIF. And you can see that we saved 99.9% of the cat of the size of the image. So what happened is we still took the same image, loaded it into the buffer, resized it to 400 by 400, and transformed it from a PNG to an AVIF. And you can see now the file size is like 200 kilobytes, right? Like that's a massive difference, right? Like imagine your website right now with all the images, and you apply this to all of your images, like what a performance difference that is, right? And that's image optimization right there. But you still have this problem here that's kind of aggressive on your server, right? Like it still takes the source image memory has to be loaded into the buffer and processed. And that is not what we want. So I have this other endpoint here called stream processing. So what we do here is we load the image into a stream and then process it in like chunks instead of loading it all into the memory at once. And then we pipe it through Sharp, which is the image optimization library, and apply all the changes in the stream, and then stream it as a response. And then in my open source package, what we do is actually stream it into the cache, which is the file system if you want to, and then from there to the response. So you only optimize every image once, right? You don't want to do that in every. Okay, so if you do this now, you can see the server memory is now at 23 kilobytes, which is great, right? So we took way less memory, not megabytes anymore, but kilobytes. I'm confused. Why is the file size? Yeah, so I guess there's a bug, huh? Should we look into the code? Sorry, that's so bad. Yeah, oh my god, people forgot the image processing part. Like nothing is happening. Is this readable? Okay, so this is a Remix or React Router app, I guess. It's just an HTTP endpoint called a loader. It takes an HTTP request in. If you scroll up a little bit, we just get the URL of the request, we pass the parameters, right? Source, site, width, and height, and the format that we want to transform it to AVIF or WebP. We validate all these parameters here, right? It's just validation code. And then we get the path of the image, and here I just map it to the public folder, right? Like /.png becomes public/cat.png. And then this is where we have to do some coding. Let's do this in 3 minutes. This is cursor. I've done this 5 times, so it's probably going to autocomplete everything to me. So there's 2 ways to read an image in Node.js, right? The first one is you say read file sync or something, right? And this just loads the image into the buffer. That's not what we want to do. What we want to do is like let's create a stream that points to the file, and then whenever we want to like start reading from that stream, it returns like the next chunk, but it never loads it fully into memory. So do this again, read stream. So now we have a stream. This is a little bit of code that's just like if you don't want to change the format, the width of the height, right? If you just want the original image, you don't have to optimize. Like we don't even have to use sharp, right? Like it would all be wasted. Just like return the image. And then what we do here is just like Node actually has this like process of memory usage, and I use that to like tell with a header to the client how much memory was used in the server, and that's what you saw in the UI. Even cooler, actually trigger the. I have to show this in so cool. I'm actually triggering the garbage collection before every request, so that the memory is cleared, so that I have a good picture of what's in the buffer. Because Node.js is actually smart enough to reuse an existing image buffer of the same image between requests. I don't know how it like understands it's the same buffer, but I think it's crazy. Anyways, I had to like do this to like make sure that the data is reported back. Cool. Okay, so the only thing we have to do now is use sharp, and we just say like, hey, so this is Cruiser fucking up. Wow, this is all wrong. Holy moly. Okay, so we have to say sharp. We want a new pipeline. Or we can just want a pipeline, right? Let me just say sharp. What you usually do with sharp is you pass the buffer in here as the argument, right? And that's just like, hey, this is the image optimization, this is the buffer, and then do this stuff. But we're not going to do this. And that's really cool that sharp supports this, right? And then what we do is, if the format is set, we say, hey, chain that transformation to the sharp pipeline, right? To format or format, and if you hover over it, that and then if there's a width and height set, we're also going to do the resize operation, right? And we're not going to change any options, but there would be some cool options as well. Sweet. Okay, so and then the only thing we need is once this is done, we need the stream that we get out on the other side of the pipeline, right? Like a stream is always like you only get data through if you start pulling. It's a very weird concept to like, yep. Anyway, so like you need some kind of stream, and you have to pass it to something that starts reading from it. And that triggers the actual like streaming of the chunks. So we say, hey, file stream, right? Like this is our stream from the file. Pipe this through this sharp's pipeline. We get another read stream out there. And then all we have to do is, you guess this, and just return that read stream. And then Node.js stupidity, right? Node.js has its own stream implementation, very old, but React Router, Remix, 10-stack start, even Honol, everybody works on the HTTP request and response objects now. They're not compatible. So every time you do like a fetch request, you have to pass it from a fetch stream to a node stream. And then here what we do is we have a node stream because we're using the node file system API. And sharp is also using node APIs. And then from there we have to transform it. So like from one streaming interface, we pass it to the other streaming interface, which is the one that HTTP, right? Like you can see MDN here, it's the MDM vec docs. Right? This is the like the streaming system that is part of the fetch API. So we have to pass it from one stream to the other, but that should already be all the changes we need. So if we go back to our website, we say we want a good image and we want to use stream processing. So please, yay, you can see the file size is tiny and the server memory is too. That's all for me. Thank you. Yeah. I should have kept that
on the streaming, is there a downside to using streaming?
Yes. It is so complicated. That's kind of my teaser. If you think this is interesting and you want to learn more, Don't. No. So one thing you should always supply, and we go into this, is you always want to provide the content type in your HTTP response, and then if you want to be really polite, the content size. And getting that information while also passing everything through a stream is really complicated, just because these information you get at the result of the image transformation. And not, like if you have a stream, there is not really a result, right? Like once you have the result, you already returned everything via HTTP. I figured it out. If you ever want to learn about Node.js streams, that is like the perfect problem to like play around with it. Like one hint is pass through is a Node.js stream that lets you start a stream, but at the same time wait until you actually pass it on to something. So you have like you can wait until before you return, and you can wait for sharp to have all the information available. All the every image has a header, and in the header is all the important information, like the format that it is, the size it has, and that becomes available way sooner than the whole image has to be processed. You just have to wait until you have that, and then you start returning. But that was super tricky to pick that up.
That question.
Yeah.
So I have two questions. First one, following up this question is, why is that metadata important? Is it like for the persistence caching of the browser?
Yeah.
Maybe CDN. My second question is, all of this real time doesn't really make sense, right? You would want to do this pre-processing when the user updates and then read out, like storing all this stuff to an actual file storage. You wouldn't be processing in real time for purposes of optimization.
Yeah.
Is that right?
It depends, like always, right? So maybe to your first question, why do you need the content type header and other headers? You actually don't, just for the sake what we do here. You can see, I'm not sure if I actually set the content type header. I think I may have, but you can fully remove it. You can also remove the .png, .aviv, or whatever file extensions. The browser is smart enough to scream in the image response, look at the header of the file, and that's how it determines what it is. But if you try to like right click and save this file, it would not then it falls apart. Like your file finder, the image wouldn't have an extension. It would look like a broken file. So especially if you want to like download files, whatever images, you want to be able to provide that information so it just like works everywhere. But the reason you need it is because let's say you have an S3 bucket with some images, and you want to optimize one of them, and then you want to provide the content type and size and everything to whoever consumes the image, right? Like as part of the response. It's really, like there's no way really for you to know that like the file format or whatever, because you can't trust the dot extension, right? Like you can omit it. It's still a valid image, and there's no metadata that comes with an image other than the one that is in the header, right? So like if you want to be very thorough with providing all the transparent information, you have to like compute it yourself, basically. I hope that kind of explains the question. So if let's just rephrase one more time. If you want to build a good image optimization library or service that provides all the information, even if the source of the image doesn't provide all the information, you have to compute it yourself, and that's why it's important. And then,
yeah, that's good.
Okay, and then to your second question.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, I think it really depends. You don't want to re-optimize every image on every request. That would be silly. But optimizing an image for a certain size from the first ever request, I think that's reasonable for a lot of services. Let's say like I have a blog, and I never know who will open it and what sizes, and I have like a very dynamic image query where like I can provide the image 300, 600, 800, 1200 pixels, and it depends on whoever visits my site. And then if you're the first user ever who's visiting the site at like a certain ratio or whatever, I don't feel bad resizing the image and you have to wait like a second. Because the next user, like if you come back, right, like then it's in the file cache or something, or cache on a CDN. I think that's for most cases a very good compromise, because what I certainly don't want is like to guess what sizes are good and do it on build for my blog and wait for like every build takes like, I don't know, 10 minutes, right? Or like depends on the size of the blog. It really depends. Right? If you have 5 images and you want to supply them in 5 sizes, you can do it yourself. But I think on demand is actually pretty good for a lot
Right. It's not that often in like a front-end development get the chance to call garbage collection. So kudos for finding a reason.
Yeah.
So we come from Sanity when we have built this as a service.
Yeah.
And there's so much I want to tell you that I can't.
Oh. You
But,
can't say that, dude. Like, I will find you later.
it's very interesting how you can hit the same problems and it is like a vast landscape. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Just wait until you get it catchy. Image size.
Well, I just
But,
I mean, I just updated my little library to have like a metadata.json file in the file system. So like I think I'm slowly getting.
but when you went into the node and web response object, I kind of recalled something that I'm passing.
Yeah.
And I had to check it up while we were talking. But I think in node 23, they have like this HTTP interface now. I think you can do it natively with the bit newest. I wonder if you looked into that, how that actually works.
Yes. Good question. So the one big problem here is like Sharp, by the way, is like all I'm doing is like, I don't know, silly little things around Sharp, right? Like Sharp is the MVP here, right? Like it's actually like a native C library and then just like hot potatoing stuff over there, but it actually can take advantage of several CPUs. It's like, it's a really good library. And like that's the only reason this is by code, right? But Sharp only accepts node streams right now, right? Like just that library. You always need to translate at least 2 node, and then once you get a node stream back, you have to. It depends on how you reply, right? Like if you use the node HTTP thing, you still have to get back from node to the web standard. And even like here, if you look, this is the readable interface from node, and I'm using its toWeb function, right? That translate the node stream into a web stream. But you see this like nasty ass ND back there? It's because the interfaces of like the global like readable stream of the web and like the thing that Linux is using are like not compatible by like I think like what is it, like prototype is missing or something, like as any works.
Hey, cool. Any yeah. All right. I thought we could do a game. So I've got one Convex shirt, and whoever can catch this, no, just kidding. But there's a whole table of Convex shirts. If anybody wants one, they look pretty cool. Yeah, I think that's a wrap. Just hang out until we've overstayed our welcome. 8:30. All right, out the door by 8:30. Sorry, you guys aren't AI agents. I can't talk to you like that. Oh yeah, terminated. Cool. So yeah, that's it. Thank you all for coming, and feel free to hang out. Yep. Also, a huge shout out to Convex again. Thank you so much.